Yeah. Yeah, it might be an opportunity for you to educate the instructors on.
I
don't mind, but just so you know. Right.
I mean, I've had a professor, you know, I gave him my note, and then they referred to me in class. They kind of just gestured towards me, you know, like, oh, you know, the assignment's due unless, you know, you have a disability. And I was kind of like,
oh.
And I kind of felt like obligated to then tell the class what my disability was, because you don't want to be labeled as the person with a disability in class.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and I did go up and talk to the professor later and just say, like, you know, I'm really open about what my disability is, but, you know, it wasn't really appropriate, and I don't appreciate you doing that.
Yeah,
and they were really understanding.
They kind of put it in like a negative context too.
Yeah.
Like it's like, well, everyone else has to do this except for the person with a disability. They, you know, like because it's so like open ended in that way. I think I would not be happy.
Yeah,
with
like
that.
I think I would have preferred if they had just said what my disability was instead of just disability.
Not to mention that that's an inaccurate statement, because students are required to meet all the course requirements regardless of a disability. So ironically enough, I mean, there should not be an exception for you because you have a disability in a due date, or, you know.
Yeah. I think I actually, just to kind of shove it in their face, I think I turned in the assignment early and got like 100 on it. I was like, huh, turning it early.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, that had an impact on you. I mean,
yeah,
certainly. Okay. Anna, do people ever ask you, I mean, we could talk about instructors specifically, or just people in general, do people ever ask you strange or unexpected questions, whether you disclose or don't disclose your disability? I mean, but have you had people ask, like, well, what medicine do you take? And, well, why do you get class notes? Or, you know, why aren't you here to take tests? Or something like that.
I've never had any questions, but you notice that people look at you a lot more. People
Really?
like pay more attention to you, like professors. They kind of like, I don't know if they're trying to be nice by keeping an eye on you, but like stuff like that. They'll like ask how you're doing more often than they ask other people, you know? It's kind of like, I mean, I don't know if they pity you or if they like have good intentions, but if you're gonna ask me, ask everybody else too, you know? Like, don't single me out, don't ask that.
Right, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Emily? Any strange questions?
Yeah, I've had strange questions, you know, like about like what foods I can eat, and you know, I've had stuff about like medications I take. You know, people ask me if the medication I take was made from lizards, and I just like I didn't quite know how to respond to that. But I just kind of looked at them and said no. But but yeah, same with Anna. Like teachers sometimes, I don't want to say baby you, but it's almost like parenting you.
Yeah.
Oh, how are you doing? Do you need anything? It's like, no, I'm good.
No.
I wonder if it's because you guys are so young, because I totally don't get that.
You don't get that
No.
from faculty?
No, but I'm a little older than the average student too, so my professors kind of expect me to just do my job and then that's it. Yeah.
I wonder if that's a factor. It might be.
It could be.
I mean, as far as like strange questions, the weirdest thing I'll get is like 20 missed calls from classmates when we have a test, and then because I'm not there on those days, but I'm probably the first person there on a normal day of class. So.
I see.
Yeah.
So they're worried that you have forgotten to take the test that day.
Yeah,
That you're taking it in disability services.
Yeah, they always think I missed the test. Like, oh, you missed the test. You're probably gonna fail. No, I got an A on it.
Right. Tevin, based on sort of the discussion we're having today and the topics that we're talking about today, have you had a particularly memorable interaction at the university that you'd like to share? Maybe positive or negative or humorous or whatever you think.
Other than my social interactions with people, you know, I can't think of any memorable interactions that I could share right now.
Okay. Sure. Shauna, what about you?
There's a couple that I could think about. One professor for business calculus, which I really struggle with, like terribly struggle with. pretty much after every class period, he would sit down with me for like 15 minutes and kind of explain like what we went over in class and kind of work it out for me, because sometimes when you explain something in you explain it in a way, and you see like 90% of the class like nod their heads, those that aren't asleep or whatever, nod your head. They're understanding. I'm like, I'm almost there. Like I just need that little bit of help.
Right.
So he would kind of clarify everything for me, and it was a huge help. Like I passed the class barely, but I worked really hard to even get like the barely portion of it. And then I had another professor just not too long ago actually, who I had some questions about this paper that I had to write, and we sat down and talked about the paper, and then we just started talking about like, because I disclosed my disability, so we started talking about my disability. He's like, well, is there a way that I could like reach, like, is there a way that I could talk or teach or show something, and that would help, that would benefit? And I was like, so we went into all of that stuff. It was really interesting.
That's great.
Yeah, he took a really big interest in how my thought processes might be different, in compared to non-disabled students. And then after that, we just started just chatting about random stuff. But it was a really good conversation. I mean, it really stood out. Like, I've been going to school here for years, and that definitely stood out like above everything else.
That is fantastic. And it sounds like that faculty member too is sort of probably has more of an awareness about universal design with teaching, which I know we do try to emphasize a lot on campus, and that's basically teaching in different modalities so that everyone in the class can understand the content or can access the content. So for example, if someone is hard of hearing, then they might repeat questions that the other students are asking the instructor that day, so that that person makes sure they don't miss it. Or if they provide, if they write on the board, for example, that they make sure that it's available in another format as well, in case someone can't see that board clearly. We have lots of students who might read lips, and so it can be helpful to make sure that the instructor's facing forward all the time. But just thinking about how people in one classroom could learn in many different ways, and trying to teach in ways that reach all of them, that's great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. Shauna, I'm going to back to you again. What advice do you have for a faculty member who has questions on how they can best accommodate you? It's really what you were just talking about. Sounds like you had a good conversation. What would you recommend for anybody who in faculty that might ask you that or need suggestions?
Well, I would say that first and foremost, the faculty member has to walk a careful line between asking the student what their disability is and asking them how they can best help. Yeah. So you don't need to know what the disability is to know to ask how you can help them. But asking, I think, is the key part. So I think it kind of is a pet peeve of mine that I hand in the form to the professor and they say, okay, and then that's pretty much it. I personally would like to see a little bit more interest from the faculty member on, what if I'm hard of hearing and I'm in a 300-person classroom? Those professors never wear mics,
That's a good point.
So, right. Even just asking simple questions like, do you need assistance with hearing, or maybe even that might be a little bit much, wouldn't it?
It could be.
Yeah, maybe just how can I help you would probably be the best way to go. Like just general, leave it in the hands of the student. The student will talk about what they feel comfortable talking about and just kind of leave it at that.
I like that. That's good advice. Just how can I help you? Anna, what do you think?
I agree. Completely agree. Because some professors are like, okay, and unless I continue the conversation, if I choose to disclose, the conversation's not going anywhere. But if you do disclose, like, I don't know, sometimes you have to keep the conversation. There are professors that ask how they can help. I've had some really great professors. Like, yeah, I've had the bad experience as well, but you don't know unless you ask. And you can't ask too much. Like, you ask what they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Sure. Right.
I think that a professor who also holds the students to a standard kind of helps as well, because, at times I may need help, but I may not want to say But if the professor's getting up there in the time where he's like going over the syllabus and he mentions the part about disability services and he lets me know, I'm comfortable, come to me if you need help, and extends that hand, but leaving the ball in the student's court to say you're responsible for speaking up for yourself, which is something we all have to learn when we first come here, because we have to be advocates for ourselves. I think the teacher who does that as well, letting us know that we're responsible, is doing the right thing as well, because you can look out for us all you want to with having a disability, but honestly, if you're thinking from the perspective of the teacher, it's kind of putting more work on them when they already have to teach 200 students in a class. So that teacher is saying you're responsible for letting me know when you need help. That has helped me. So I think that is something that the staff members should take into account too. You need to establish some sense of responsibility for the student.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to, like, this is college, this isn't high school, there's no plans, there's no parent that's going to hold your hand. Like, it's up to you to be able to advocate for yourself, but it does help if, professors are open-minded about it. Just having that open-mindedness and the openness to be able to ask questions and stuff like that is probably pretty influential.
Sure. Right. I think those are all really good points, for sure. And it is true, students have to provide this letter, of accommodation to faculty in order to receive any accommodations. And in fact, we ask that faculty not provide accommodations unless they've gotten one of these letters from us to verify, that this is a legitimate need. But it is up to the student to elaborate on what they need. And we encourage students to actually provide these letters to faculty, and I think y'all probably do this most of the time. Well, you were just talking about this, Shauna. Providing the letter to them in their office and during office hours can make a big difference in maybe providing an opportunity to have that conversation rather than providing the letter to them like right before class starts or right after class ends. That can be tricky. Sometimes you may know a faculty member, you've had them before, so you might give them the letter because you've already been through a conversation. But we really do encourage a conversation about accommodations to happen in an office and outside of the classroom. So it gives both people a chance to elaborate if they want to, if needed. Yeah. I'm going to ask all of you this question. What are there changes to process, facilities, etc., that you think could make UNC Charlotte more user-friendly for students with disabilities? Any ideas or suggestions?
I think because we have, we're a commuter campus, but we also have a huge student population that lives on campus, who dines on campus, and we get all of our meals on campus. Nutrition would be really important because you don't necessarily think nutrition disability, but it is because people have allergies, people need to know like what's in the food, so it would be really important to get that nutritional information out there, because as a whole student, I think a whole student body could like benefit from it in general, but it would really help for people like me, with my disability, to be able to go to the dining hall and see what is in the food I'm eating, and being able to get that information so I can keep myself healthy, because otherwise it's just a guess.
Right, that's a good point. And you pay a lot of money for the
meal plan.
So.
I think just making it accessible, like for people, I know people in wheelchairs and stuff like that, like there's sometimes that you hit the thing to have the door open and it just doesn't open like it should, or it's slow, and like there's really not too many ramps or things inside the building, like little things like the flickering lights, and I think that kind of just needs to be paid attention to.
Yeah, a lot of the doors to the classrooms, I have the little feet
Yeah.
that pop down, and so you have to get someone to hold the door open for you if you're in a chair to be able to get in and out of the classrooms.
I actually had not thought about that.
Yeah,
the little rubber stopper thing, but that interferes with the width for a wheelchair, doesn't it?
It does, because the doorways are on the older buildings. The doorways are a little too narrow, and so you end up having to hold the door open for them anyways. But from their perspective, if they don't have anyone to do that for them, they really struggle to get in and out of the classroom.
That's a really good point. Yeah.